You're listening to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is a program called
The Absolutely Bloody Marvellous World of Wardini.
Yes, it is, indeed. remember we were going to make it longer and longer and longer.
Yeah.
Each time we came, we should start doing that.
That was my first attempt. I'll see you next week.
And it was a good one too. All right, now today we've got 3 fabulous books to review, and the first one is Kudanai Toku.
Yes, Kudanai Toku by Whiti Heriaka.
Yes.
And it is... it's a finalist for the Jan Medlicott Acorn Prize for Fiction in the Ockham New Zealand Book Awards, which is going to be all announced in May. Mm-hmm. So there are 4 fiction novels in the finals, and this is one of them. And it is a beautiful looking book.
It is lovely.
And look how you go, hang on, you go like that. So it's actually in 3 parts,
right.
and you can start which end you want to.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And in the middle is a legend that I wasn't familiar with. You might be, Hatupatu and the Bird Woman.
No.
So because I didn't grow up here, and you didn't either.
No, I did not.
That one, we know about Maui and the sun and his mother's jawbone and grandmother's jawbone and all those sorts of things, but this one I didn't know about. And so the legend goes that Hatupatu marries Kudanai Toku, who is the bird woman, part bird, part woman, and she looks after the songbirds, the song makers of the forest. And at some point in their relationship, he buggers off and kills a load of the birds, and then she is absolutely furious. Yeah, so that is the original story, and it's always been about her being a demon, a monster, going after him with her terrible scaly claws, and he's the sweet innocent boy who just did something that anyone would do to his wife's people. But so what Whiti Heriaka is doing here is she's taking the story back away from the man, and this becomes about Kudanai Toku, the bird woman, and it's in bits where she's dead, she's gone into the afterlife, she's gone into Rarahenga, and she is pursuing Hatupatu for Utu, for revenge, and that is my favourite bit. Yeah. So going into like an afterlife, and it's this real kind of hazy, dreamlike quality to the writing, where Kura meets Hininui Tupor, and Hininui Tupor creates Kura in her own image out of clay, and there's this kind of very steamy scene between the two of them in a hot pool. So it's literally and metaphorically steamy, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Between
yes.
these 2 women, and then from there she's going and she meets Tumatoenga, the god of war, and Whiri, I think he is, and they have like an upturned waka, and all these spirits are fighting and gouging, and they've got Taiaha and are chopping each other up, and then they die, and then they reform, and they have a little rest, and they go at it again. But there's a really interesting bit about that, because as we move through time and colonial people die, and colonial influences die and go to Rarahenga, then all these dead people are shooting each other with muskets constantly. They don't have chance to reform. They just kind of like so it's actually quite an interesting comment on colonialism and how that's infiltrated Māori culture and polluted it somewhat. So that was a really exciting aspect of the book too. So she's pursuing Hatupatu through Rarahenga in this bit, and it is just really all about her story, and she is a woman who has been wronged. She's not a demon, and I think through this she learns to love herself again.
I can't get my head around the fact that it's 3 standalone books and one ending started in the end, and the story makes sense. Is that how it works?
The original story is in the middle.
All right.
And then you've got Rarahenga, and then you've got Miro, I think it is. Ruru, and then Miro. So you've got all the...
Yes.
And the acknowledgements are in the front at both ends.
Yeah.
To save confusion in the middle. It's just the most amazing package, isn't it?
It sounds fantastic. Who's going to appeal to it? Is it sort of one of those sort of fantasy, sci-fi type people going to read it, or who's going to read that book?
Anyone interested in Māori legends, anyone interested in beautiful poetic writing, well-constructed writing, feminist writing, any of that really, and literary novels. Anyone interested in what's going on in New Zealand fiction, important stuff in New Zealand fiction.
It sounds like it might translate into a fabulous film.
God, it would be epic, wouldn't it, when you think about it?
Special effects would be awesome, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Tell us about Words About Birds.
Words About Birds. So we're on to birds, but not scary ones particularly. So this is by Well, it's Words About Birds of Aotearoa, New Zealand, let's be specific, by Geoffrey Fuller. And just before I came out, I read the bit at the back about Geoffrey Fuller and realised that he actually died in 2011, so this is dedicated to his memory. So this is obviously some work that he did a while back.
He looks familiar to me.
Oh, OK. I'll show you the book after so you can have a good look. He was a teacher and an educator and a painter. So, and the illustrations are his too. So I really like it. It's a rhyming book and it's all about New Zealand is a land of birds from north to Stewart Island. They're found in all the forests tall, in parks and swamps and dry land, and we go on like that. And then we've got little verses. It's not always rhyming couplets. It might be a different form of poetry. There's the torua, there's the korimako. I really like that one because I've wondered in our area, we get the bellbirds, and I love their little chime.
Yes.
And then it disappears, and you think, oh, where have they gone? I hope, nothing's eaten them, and I get worried about it, but apparently it's seasonal. Because in the spring, the bellbirds ring. In summertime, you'll hear them chime. When autumn's here, the bells ring clear. In winter's chill, the bells are still.
I wonder where they go.
Don't know. They just kind of hunker down a bit, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we get them in our garden and think, they've got a beautiful sound, haven't they?
Oh, it's just lovely, yeah. There's a bittern, there's a gannet, there's a godwit. I quite like that one. In winter, they fly back again and leave behind our coast. It seems as if they can't decide which land they like the most. So it's entertaining as well, and the paintings are quite gorgeous.
They are, they're lovely, aren't they?
Yeah, so I think it's very educational. You've got the lovely way that children like to learn with rhythm and rhyme, and then you've got the cool illustrations too.
And cool for adults who don't know anything about birds.
I learnt something.
Yes, exactly, and that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely it is.
Who's going to read that book? What age kid is going to pick that up and say, this is a great book?
You're going to read it to your grandchildren. So I think it is to be read aloud. It would be a really good one for schools, actually, wouldn't it, for little children to learn about the birds, and then they could perhaps come up with poems about birds themselves. I think it's good for anyone to read to kids of maybe 3 and up, I would say.
Good one.
The Tui one is great because they're so prolific now, aren't they? Sorry, I've jumped back into this book again. But it's like the song of the Tui may be heard in Northland, Southland, Western, Auckland and in Whanganui. The song of the Tui may be heard in Wellington, Masterton, Palmerston, Hamilton and in Monanui. It's just everywhere. It's great.
But that's a good point that you raised about tuis, because, I don't know whether they become more mindful as they've got older, but I don't remember tuis growing up being so prevalent. And it's only probably over the last 4 or 5 years, I think, wow, tuis are everywhere. Is it just me, or have they just become everywhere?
I don't know. We get a lot of them in Havelock because we live near Kerunga Gardens, and we've got trees all around us, and they are swooping and diving and having a go at the dog.
So you're blessed with them. You've probably just lived with them all the time.
Yes, since we've been here probably. But I think I have noticed more of them, more pairs. They tend to hang about in pairs, don't they?
Tell us about the last book we're going to look at today. It's called Before the Rising. Is that a bit about fighting or uprisings or...?
The uprising of the ocean, Ken.
All right.
So you can't get any more
Very
local
deep.
than this. Very deep. Very deep. Keren Powell is the author. She's a Napier GP turned young adult novelist. And this one talks about the myth of Panya of the reef and how Panya wanted to live with her human husband, and her father nutted off on her, locked her in a room down at the deep bottom of the sea. But we are back on dry land, and it's modern day, it's now, and there's a young woman called Rebecca. She's just about to leave school, so she's 17, 18, and she's always lived with her guardian, Mary. And we know from almost like little prologue bits at the beginning of the novel that Mary has kind of adopted Rebecca because her mother was not able to look after her. She births her and she leaves. And we also know that there's some kind of Aquean people that live off Panya's reef, and they are real sort of air and aquatic people. So there's that going on. Then there's Rebecca. And Rebecca's reunited with her best friend Polly's brother, who's been away to university and he's doing a PhD, but he's broken his ankle and he comes back home to do his studies, and he's doing like marine biology. And she goes out on the ocean with him to be his assistant. And he needs his PhD supervisor says, I need you to do me a favour and take this other girl out on your boat with you because she's interested in doing the course you did when you were an undergrad, Jessica. Jessica's only Rebecca's nemesis from school, like the school bully.
Yes.
So they're all stuck on a boat together. So there's all that going on. And Jessica is quite a nasty piece of work. And then Mary gets this note saying it's time. And I love it in a book or a film, and it's time.
Yes.
Something big's going to happen, some big dramatic thing. And basically the big dramatic thing is that Rebecca is a descendant of Panya. The myth is
Wow.
mostly real. And Panya left something down in her room, her locked room somewhere in the reef there, that will help mitigate the effects of climate change and the sudden rising of the ocean. And Rebecca's had this dream for years and years about looking down on flooded cities, you know, and dead bodies and all this kind of thing. So if the ocean rises, that suddenly it's going to come in and it's going to drown Napier. It's really then about Rebecca reconciling herself to this life. She's always felt very drawn to the ocean, and she's at home in it, but she didn't know that she was actually a person of the ocean, you know, so...
Are we going to be uplifted when we close that book?
It's incredible. I was so impressed with it, because it talks a lot about climate change, and it talks about almost like the industrialization of climate change, where people are like, well, I've invented this thing that you can all buy for millions of dollars so there's geoengineering in here that doesn't work, but people are trying to make money off the back of it. So it deals with that. So there's the science of it, and then this beautiful mythology, and there's a romance in it. And it's kind of got a bit of everything. It's a real thriller.
I wonder how easy is it, do you think, in your experience, you've talked to lots of authors over the years, how easy is it for older people, like she's not a teenager, how easy is it for her to write for young people? Do you have to understand young people, or can...
I think she's got kids. And really, most young adult authors are not young adults anymore.
No, they're not.
But perhaps they've retained that sense of adventure, and that if you can you remember your first love or your first few loves? I don't know. You know, and how intense it is, and the intensity of everything when you're that age. So it makes young adult characters just real ripe for amazing adventures, doesn't it? So, yeah.
What would you give that book out of 10?
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 doesn't get any better than that, does it?
No, it doesn't.
All right, now if we want any of these marvellous books, where do we get them?
Oh, come to Wardini Books. We're very friendly.
Yes, you are. Good on you, Lou. My pleasure as always. Look after yourself. Talk to you same time, same place next time.
Cheers, Ken.